Now, it's wonderful that Dr. Durst mentioned this topic about knowledge risk. Indeed, in the research arena, this is underexplored. It just so happened that one of my research students, Haley Zhang, has completed a research degree in this particular area. So today I have the opportunity to interview her on this particular topic. How are you, Haley?
I'm good, thank you.
Wonderful. Now, let me ask, the first question is, what exactly is knowledge risk and why is it important for organizations to care about knowledge risk?
Actually, knowledge risk, as you said, is a rarely researched topic. So, knowledge risk refers to the problems or threats that may occur when knowledge is not managed properly. So, there are some common examples. Like leaking out business knowledge when there are loopholes in IT security system, and losing knowledge when an employee retire or depart. So most organizations nowadays actually recognize the importance of knowledge and its role in driving the competitive advantage of the organization. And they exploit the opportunities and capture the values created by knowledge. Yet very few of them actually realize that when knowledge is not managed properly, there can be risk. So this risk can actually be disastrous at times and affecting the company's operational efficiency to the least or sustainability to the worst. So in fact, there should be a balanced treatment of both the positive and negative sides of knowledge.
Wonderful, indeed. So it's about the cost and the impact of, in particular, misjudging, miscommunicating, or misinterpreting knowledge. Well, allow me to move on to the second question. Is well, can you give a concrete example, for example, for an organization, how it has actually mismanaged this knowledge risk?
Yes, sure. I can give an example that is a company in the airline industry. So, in fact, it is Delta Airlines. In the mid 1990s, actually, because of the poor economic situation, Delta Airlines had to downsize its workforce to cut down costs to stay competitive. So, they departed a large number of employees. Yet when time passed by, actually serious problems occurred. So the story is that as many experienced technicians actually departed, the remaining less experienced one take much longer time to repair the airplanes, and eventually resulting in flight delays and or even flight cancellations, and increasing the cost per seat miles and decreasing the customer satisfaction. So from this story, actually, Delta Airlines learned that knowledge loss risk is an issue that cannot be ignored, and they started to implement some knowledge retention measures thereafter.
Wonderful. That surely illustrates the serious consequences of mismanaging the knowledge that led to the significant costs and delays for this particular airline. Well, you have done a lot of research in this particular area. Can we go deeper and have you actually identified the different types of knowledge risk?
Yes, there are actually four major types of knowledge risk that we have discovered, and we have did an extensive literature review and have some interviews with the KM professionals. So we found out that there are actually four risks. The first one is the knowledge leakage risk, and the second one is the knowledge loss, and the third and fourth one are the obsolescence and shortage risk. So people actually usually confused about the first two type of knowledge risk, that is the leakage or loss risk. So in fact, leakage refers to the potential that the core knowledge is leaked out to unauthorized parties, but the knowledge is still retained in the enterprise, while the loss risk means that the potential that the knowledge is not no longer exists in the enterprise. Yeah.
Right, wonderful. I mean, that's relates up to the issue of knowing what you know or not knowing what you actually know. Now, I think common sense led us to believe that, overall speaking, organizations are not spending enough effort on harnessing the knowledge that they've got and therefore exposing to high risk.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? And what are some of the examples that you can cite, and why organizations are not spending sufficient effort on the handling the knowledge risk?
Yes, definitely. So, as mentioned, we have performed some interviews with the KM professionals. So, we found out that they mainly focus on the positive side of knowledge. So, as I just mentioned, they can leverage upon the values brought about by knowledge, yet they pay less attention to the dark side of knowledge. And we found out that in literatures, viewing knowledge from the risk perspective is rarely seen. And in fact, in the two framework in the enterprise risk management that is developed by both the Committee of Sponsoring Organization of the Trade Rate Commissions as well as CAS, the Council of the Actuarial Society. In these two framework, knowledge risk is not specifically dealt with and is not a category by itself in the classification. So that's why if company themselves, even they want to manage knowledge risk, they have no guidelines or reference to follow.
Right. Well, that is indeed a serious problem. Well, I suppose your research is contributory to a positive cause. So if that's the case, what are your recommendations? What can organizations do in order to at least reduce the exposure to knowledge risk?
So in fact, this is a risk management problem. So actually usually four phases of risk management: the identification, assessment, evaluation, and controlling. So because we are like an exploratory research, so we now focus on the first two steps, that is the assessment, the identification and assessment. So we in fact develop a tool for assessing the four major types of knowledge risk that I just mentioned. And from using this tool, organization can have a view on the present status of knowledge risk, and they can prioritize the type of knowledge risk and they should tackle first, and to which they should allocate more resources to. So this tool can serve as a starting point for organization to manage knowledge risk, and it actually have been tested in several companies, and actually we receive positive feedback from them as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's extremely valuable sharing by Haley, and a very important topic indeed. If you want to read more about it, go to the selected reading area. Well, Haley, thank you very much for doing this
Thank
interview
you
for
so
us.
much.